Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Right Side Rising. So today we're joined by Wynton Nama, a conservative content creator who has amassed a very large following of around 150,000 on Instagram. He's here today for a special interview about a wide variety of topics. So Wynton, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. So we're going to get started right away. So you are a congressional liaison. You sit at the intersection of military and politics. What's something about that relationship that the average American doesn't understand?
That is a great question. So just to clarify on the congressional liaison part, I am currently, or I actually just picked up a role with Convention of States. And Convention of States is an organization that is dedicating itself to bringing power back to the states and minimizing federal government. The whole point is to give people more influence over the decisions and policies that affect them most. And so as a congressional liaison, I will be having the opportunity to be going to my state's capital, in this case, the beautiful state of California, and I'll be meeting with state legislatures from both sides and trying to get a bipartisan support, a bipartisan base for Convention of States and for the mission and the purpose that we have here.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit more about Convention of States.
So Convention of States stands behind Article 5. And like I said, the whole gist of it is bringing power back to the states. And this is initially what the founders wanted. This is actually one of the more, you could say, the more foundational principles of our Constitution. And it's really, I think it's fairly neglected. And multiple states and multiple different political organizations have tried exploring similar options. For instance, the state where I'm from, the state of Texas, they tried with the Texas nationalist movement, right? And the whole purpose behind that was to secede from the Union, not entirely separate itself, but at least to secede at the government level. That way, Texas can make decisions for itself and not have to deal with the extra baggage of the federal government. Unfortunately, as you expect, that did not gain full support from both sides, even from our own side, from the conservative base. And so Convention of States is doing exactly what Texas did, but at the national level without dividing the country and while still maintaining that unity between all 50 states. And so I think it's an amazing opportunity to combat against lobbyism, right? Foreign lobbies influencing our politicians and elected officials. And it's also giving people more power to influence their government and have a say and influence over decisions that affect them most.
So you mentioned lobbying. Do you have any, you mentioned also foreign lobbying. Do you have any lobbying group in mind when you talk about this?
I have a few. So when it all comes to lobbying, I see it as this, right? I see it as it could either be a domestic or a foreign agent that campaigns and that donates money to a specific group, right? So for instance, Gino, if you're running for office and I were to come to you and be like, hey, I want you to run on these and these policies and I will pay you this amount of money, right? And if you don't do it, well, you're going to face a few consequences. And it's sort of this gist that we've observed with a lot of our elected officials today. They don't really have a spine anymore, or they don't really stand up for something. But what they do is they run off of policies, which, by the way, they don't really understand entirely, to be honest with you, but they get paid insane amount of monies from political lobbies. It could be foreign from other countries, which I think is a big threat to national security, but oftentimes domestic even. And many times these lobbies don't have American interests in mind, but they have the interests of the elites, of people who have high ranking within Washington and even the international stage. And so if we're really going to push for an America first ideology, I think it's really important that we eliminate lobbyism within the federal government and we return to actually running for the people, right? Equal representation, the basic rights, the basic principles which our founders advocated and fought for so hard.
Yeah, and that's so important. How do you think that America First has kind of evolved? Oh, obviously, America First started out as purely America First, and it feels like sometimes there are some far gone factions that actually advocate for the interests of other countries. Do you think that America First has kind of evolved into a diluted term?
I think it has. And I'm not going to name too many of here, but there are a lot of elected officials within our government who claim to be America first, but they put other countries ahead of them. And I think it's a really sad thing. You know, you had the trust of the people that voted you into office, but you disappoint us and backstab us when you go and support another country and you put their interests above the interests of America first. To be truly America first, I think it requires America to push out all foreign entities. And I'm not saying we should totally neglect our partners or our allies overseas. That is not what I'm insinuating here at all. But I think there comes a point where we must realize that America has a lot of problems and a lot of internal issues. We are not God. We are finite. And we have things that we have to address in our own country before we try to go help others. And that is a really underspoken thing. It is a really neglected problem that we have here in our country. And so when we go back to things like Convention of States, bringing power back to the states means that we're going to be able to have a more microscopic view on the issues which affect us most in our own country, in our own states, in our own counties, communities, neighborhoods, before we go out there and try to play superhero and law enforcement for another country, which, by the way, 9 times out of 10, we probably won't be able to control or fix, right? There's a favorite verse from scripture, and Christ is saying that before you try to take the speck out of your brother's eye, take the log which is in your own. And America needs to take the log out of its own eye before it tries, it just needs to take the log out of its own eye before it tries to go take the tiny speck out of other countries' eyes. And then when we fix our own problems here, right, maybe our elected officials can think about funding and going after other countries to try to go and help them. But I say America first is America first. We focus here. We turn a blind eye to what's happening abroad while still protecting our interests, mind you, but we have a unique focus on what's happening over here.
Yeah, and foreign lobbying doesn't benefit any American. It doesn't. It really doesn't. It lines the money of Congress members and presidents in some cases, and it has no benefit whatsoever to the people that these people are elected to represent. So obviously, within the youth movement, the youth conservative movement, really specifically, youth foreign lobbying is not very popular. And one day we seek to actually get rid of that. How do we go about getting rid of foreign lobbying?
That is a great question. And unfortunately, and it actually terrifies you to say this, but I don't know, right? Like the roots of foreign lobbying, we have so many foreign entities which are so far extra than our government. We have so many elected officials which are controlled by these foreign entities because they're being paid. And many of these elected officials have blackmail on them, right? So if they try to retract and be like, okay, well, I don't want to be supported by this foreign lobby anymore and I'm going to be my own person, well, then they get threatened with blackmail or even the loss of their life, and their families also get threatened, right? And so it's a very delicate situation. It's going to require a lot of prayer. I believe it's going to require a lot of heavenly intercession, but it's also going to require a very thorough and far-stretched investigation deep within the ranks of Washington, D.C. And I'm talking about levels we've never witnessed in our lives before. I mean, we've heard this quote so many times. We're going to drain the swamp, right, from our current president and many other MAGA officials, right? But it's going to require more than a draining the swamp. It's going to be laying out the swamp flat. I mean, super flat on a surface and just looking at it with a microscope and a bright beam of light from the sun itself and eliminating the very cancer, right? In order to kill cancer, you need to stop feeding it. And we have to stop feeding the very root cause. And that's my idea, honestly. I believe it's much more than that. And like you said, a lot of Gen Z, fortunately, a lot of Gen Z does not support foreign lobbying, which is a good thing. And, something I like doing is I like going on social media just to measure the temperature or just to see the sort of political climate that people have on certain issues. And I am really overjoyed to see my generation, me and your generation, standing up and, waking up to the, to the control here, to the beast, which is lobbyism, right? Foreign entities and even harmful domestic entities controlling elected officials. And it makes me very glad to see that people are finally standing up against it. And that means that if we can really give power back to the states, and if we can really chop up the government, minimize it, and if we can get more of these Gen Z teenagers or these Gen Z people that are already waking up, if we can get them to vote against lobbyism, that puts America in a better position than it was before, because people are waking up and now all people need to do is take action. I'm a big believer in action. It makes me very happy to see young people like yourself get out there and try to make a difference within their community. I believe it's very important, right? I don't believe that anybody should strive for a mediocre lifestyle, right? Like innovation is what made America so great. I believe you should go out there and try to do something great with your lives. And so that all starts with action. It starts with going and talking to people, networking, voicing your opinion like me and you are doing right now, right? Taking advantage of the blessings we have here in America and using it for good.
Yeah, and so you're not just a conservative content creator, you're also an entrepreneur. And a lot of young people struggle with financial literacy. What piece of advice would you give to young people who do struggle with that?
That is a great question, and you actually caught me by surprise because not too many people ask me that. But I'd say this: I'd say replace the content you consume in a world where social media is becoming addicting, and I've been a victim of that, and I'm still working on it. Right, like I'm not even gonna hide it or try to play saint here. Like I think social media is something that everyone struggles with to some extent in their life, but social media is good if you use it for good. It is what it is, right? You look at AI, you look at technology, Instagram, all these platforms. It's only good if you use it for good. And so what I say is start educating yourself, right? Surround yourself with people who have a mindset to win. If you want to make a lot of money one day, you have to go to people who also want to make a lot of money. Or even better, and this is what I do, I surround myself with people who make a lot of money. So I'll go and I ask millionaires, I'll ask well-established business people and business owners, what did you do? How can I become like you? What is some advice that you have that I can implement in my own life? And the thing is, it's not going to be easy. People need to learn the ethic of hard work. I always say this: there's no up without down. There's no success without failure. You need to fail so many times that you're able to look through it and be like, I know that one day in the midst of all of this failure, there is going to be one day of success. There's going to be one day of complete green, one day of rejoicing, right? One day of just wins, complete wins. And this is the kind of mindset you have to adopt here. It's called a winner's mindset, right? You need to have discipline. You need to be serious with yourself. You need to make goals. You need to make long-term goals. I'm a big fan of planning long-term. I'm a big fan of looking into the future and being like, okay, 5 years down the road, where will I be standing? If I take these specific options, right, where will I be standing? What day is it today? It's Thursday today, right? It's a Thursday evening. It's almost Friday. Very soon, a lot of college kids are going to go out and party. They're going to go out and party, and they're going to go waste a ton of their hours. And while they're partying, there's going to be a very select few young teenagers out there who are going to be at home grinding, studying, building their business, or doing something that's productive, right? And so you gotta make the difference. Like if I put this many hours partying, how is that going to make me money, or how is that going to benefit me in the long run, right? If I go out, maybe I can go out with my friends, go spend a lot of money, go get drunk, go spend time with all of these girls. Well, you're going to have a lot of enjoyment and fun in that specific moment. But guess what? Later down the road, it's not really going to benefit you anything. You're going to feel more broken, more depressed, and more destroyed, broke than you were before. And then you look on the bright side and, oh, instead of doing all of these vulgar, viceful things, I could be investing in myself. I could be studying. I could be learning different business models. I could be networking. I could be calling up people that I know who are already successful and trying to gain knowledge and, getting mentorship. And yes, it's going to be hard. And yes, it's going to suck. And that's the whole nature of the game. It does suck. There are going to be days where you're going to want to give up. And trust me, I've been through those days so many times. I still continue to go through those days, but I remind myself that there is a goal at the end of a tunnel that I need to achieve. There is something that I am looking for and something that I want to do. I'm trying to make my ancestors proud, my parents proud, my friends and my peers proud. And so you got to focus on yourself. You got to surround yourself with people who also want to focus on themselves and who want to see you win and who also want to win. It's all about your social circle.
And you seem to live by a very strong sense of purpose. How do you stay grounded mentally and spiritually amid so many different responsibilities?
That is a great question, right? And, like I said before, it's absolutely not easy. There are days where I absolutely want to quit. There are days where I feel depressed. There are days where I feel alone, especially in a world where you can get prosecuted and put under investigation for voicing your opinions out loud, right? Especially in a world where maybe your parents or siblings are not going to support every decision you make. And unfortunately, that was the case with me, right? You're going to need a strong backbone. And so the biggest thing I use, the biggest person who was a big influence in my life and who was able to help me stay on track was Jesus Christ. Unapologetically, Jesus Christ. He was able to show me his will for me. He was able to give me love when I didn't have any. He was able to give me comfort when I didn't have any. And he was also able to help me stay grounded and in a positive track, right? I was able to always go and run to him and rely on him whenever I was down or whenever I had issues or whatever. So it's all of that, right? Jesus Christ is always the answer to all of your issues ultimately. When always put God first is what I say, right? Put yourself first. Nobody cares more about yourself than you, believe it or not. Not your parents, not your siblings, nobody. Only yourself, with the exception of Jesus Christ and God, honestly, only yourself cares about you, right? So putting God first, putting the one person in your life who keeps you alive, who allows you to see another day, putting him first and then putting yourself first, and also being disciplined and being hopeful and thankful for what you have is really what keeps you running. Like I said, as long as you have an objective in mind, an achievable objective, and you keep biting it, right? You keep working your way towards that goal, it's eventually going to give you a sense of pride and a sense of purpose that you're going to look back in 5 years and be like, I did that. I worked towards that goal. That was something that I did because I remained disciplined. I kept the faith. I believed in God, and look where I am today.
Yeah, so how do you like define success, not just in career terms, but in life?
hmm I think, uh, I think success is what you make it to be. You know, I think the first quality of success, or the first characteristic, I can't say this. Oh my God, characteristic of success would be, what is your relationship with Jesus Christ right now? You know, and you should really go think and reflect about it, is, do I have a close connection with my Father in heaven, with Heavenly Father? And then second, it all boils down to what you want to do. People think maybe being successful is, I don't know, how many girls can I get in a night, or maybe how much money can I make in this specific period of time, or how many cars do I have, or whatever. Everybody has their own view of success, and I'm not going to be the one to judge you. I want you to have goals and dreams, and I want you to go pursue those goals and dreams as long as they're within the bounds of God's will for you in your life, right? But in my opinion, as long as you have a stable and fervent and fruitful relationship with Jesus Christ, and as long as you are firm in your faith, I believe you're already successful. Now you just gotta use the blessings that God already gave you. You gotta use your faith. You gotta use the discipline that you're continuing to develop, right? And you gotta use that to build your life, and you gotta use it to achieve your dreams, achieve your goals, as long as they are within the bounds of God's will for you.
Yeah. So, what core values drive everything you do, whether it's being an entrepreneur or public service?
hmm That's a great question. I'd say humility. Being able to do these kind of things, whether it's business or whether it's politics, with a lot of humility. Look at the whole political stage, and look at, and look how all of these people like bashing each other on the media every single day. But being able to realize that you're imperfect and that you're a sinner and that you're not different from your neighbor, left or right to you, regardless of their political opinions, it's a really humbling thing, and you got to understand that. But being humble doesn't mean underestimating yourself. Being humble doesn't mean allowing yourself to be walked upon or trotted upon like you're some, you're some worthless rag. Cause you're not. You are worth it, especially in the eyes of your Heavenly Father. And so I think being humble, but also knowing self-worth is one of the greatest attributes to have, because you're going to be able to walk while being a good and righteous person, but also having enough self-respect to know that I am worth something and that I have a purpose on this earth, that God didn't put me on this earth for nothing. God put me on this earth because he wants to see me win. He wants to see me succeed, and he wants to see me serve others. So humility is definitely one thing. And I'd also say public service. It's one of the main reasons why I enlisted in the military. Then again, all of my opinions stated in this episode are not endorsed by the DoD. These are my own opinions, obviously. But serving in the military is a big sacrifice, because you're sacrificing a lot of time, and you'd be surprised about you'd be surprised about how many commitments I had to sacrifice because of the military, or how many opportunities I missed. One of the biggest opportunities I'd say I missed out was being able to go to Mar-a-Lago last year. And that was simply because I had commitments with the military, and so it's very frustrating. And I think that's why it's called sacrifice and service, because it's not only the fact that you might lose your life one day fighting for this country, but it's more of look at all the opportunities you're missing. You see all of these other like college kids, these other people, and they have like free control of their time or whatever, and you have to sort of listen to America's bidding. You got to do America's bidding. You are America's lifeline, and so it's truly humbling experience, and it really teaches you that service to others pays a lot. Service to others builds character.
Yeah, so you mentioned you served. What inspired you? What first inspired you to become a Marine, and what kept you going through the challenges of service? Because obviously, it's such a big role.
I'd say that what inspired me to become a Marine were my parents. And believe it or not, my parents initially were not, very supportive. They're actually very against it. And unfortunately, they did not really support my whole pipeline throughout the whole training or recruitment process for me. However, I saw my parents come from nothing. I'm a first generation immigrant or first generation American. My parents are immigrants, and I've seen them come from absolutely nothing. I've seen them come from third world countries, absolutely broke, and I've seen the American dream bless my parents. I've seen them come with zero, and I've seen them make a lot. My dad today is an attorney. My mom works in finance. They make a lot of money, considerable amounts of money, and this would have never happened without America. Obviously, not giving glory to America or anything. I obviously give glory to God for whatever, but I am a true and firm believer that America wouldn't be here without God, that God had a plan for us. God had a plan for freedom fighters, and America was the result of that plan. And I've seen America build my family. I've seen America offer opportunities to my family to build themselves, to grow, whether that's in their career or their families or anything. And so seeing that as the second oldest of 6, 7 siblings, I couldn't just sit there and be like, I'm just going to live my life. Like, I had to serve. I looked at the young men and women who go out there and put their lives on the line for our country, and I was like, I don't care what it takes. I don't care if I have any medical restrictions or any medical issues. I have to go out there and at least do 4 years, at least sacrifice some of my time, because these young men and women are losing their lives every day. They're losing their time. They're sacrificing so much in order for people like my parents to be able to come to an amazing country and become so successful and make so much money. And so there's no way I'm going to sit there idly by it and watch them do that and enjoy and reap the fruits of their blood and of their labor. I have to go put in my 4 years. I have to go and serve my country.
So, how has serving in the Marines shaped your perspective on leadership and responsibility?
That's a great question. Leadership. Not everybody's a great leader. Not even me. Being a great leader, that's probably a topic for a whole different episode, right? But being a great leader all starts from humility. To be a great leader, you got to be a great follower. Um, Simply put, as a matter of fact, my institute teacher, my religious teacher yesterday actually brought that up. Is what makes a great leader? A great leader is born? Are they made? And that is a great question that I am still reflecting on to this day. But I definitely say without a doubt that to be a great leader, you got to be humble. You got to put yourself in the shoes of those who you lead. You got to put yourself in the shoes of those who look up to you and those who follow you. You cannot think that you are greater than somebody else because you have a higher rank on your collar or because of your title, right? And so, at least in the Marine Corps, I've seen this a lot. I see a lot of like NCOs, corporals, sergeants, and a lot of people who often think that they're better than me because maybe they've been in the military longer or they've seen more than I have, which is understandable and respectable to an extent, but I don't think that you're a better person or a better human just because you've maybe seen more, or maybe because you've done more, you've been there longer. No, we're all humans, we're all humans, we're all sinners on the face of the earth, and we all owe respect to each other, and we should all strive to build each other up and to be kind to each other. That doesn't mean you should not correct your peers. That's what I'm saying, right? The whole goal of leadership is to build each other, right? And so if you're a leader and you want to build your subordinates, you need to make sure that you call out their mistakes. But calling out their mistakes doesn't mean you demean them, doesn't mean you put them down, doesn't mean you discourage them and call them a piece of crap, because that's not how it works. No, you have to point out the obvious issue and you have to show them the path that they need to take in order to fix that issue. And unfortunately, some leaders don't do that, and I've had the opportunity to work with some of those kind of leaders. But I am very happy to say, though, that, the leaders in my unit and the leaders that I work with today, they are very kind people, and they are good leaders. They are people who actually care about their subordinates, and they are people who actually put in the effort, who take care of their subordinates. And you don't find those kind of leaders every single day. And it's not only the military; it could also be in business. It could be in any other industry. It can be in politics too. You look at senators, presidents. They have chief of staff. They have subordinates that they lead all day. I love to know how most of them are treated. It's an interesting thing. You're faced with all of this stress, and you're faced with all of these demands and responsibilities as a day-to-day elected official. It'd be interesting to see how they treat their subordinates and their staff. Things that obviously mean you don't know, but being a leader must require that you be humble. I'd say.
Yeah. So, for young Americans who are thinking about joining the military, what would you tell them about what to expect and, what it will demand of them?
Um, I'll say this. I'm a recruiter, so I don't want to take. I'd say first go talk to a recruiter, number one. So I'll give that back to the armed forces right there. However, I'd say my personal piece of advice is have a long-term plan, because before joining the Marine Corps, I already had a long-term plan. Like, I already had my career in politics going before I joined the Marine Corps. I already had all these connections, right? And so my journey and your journey is not going to be the same. It's going to be very different, right? So before I joined the Marine Corps, I was like, I'm going to have a career in politics one day, and I want to make a lot of money one day, because I obviously have to fund that career. It's not free. Having a career in politics is actually quite expensive, believe it or not. And so I already had this whole blueprint set up. Many people who join the military don't have a blueprint at all. They're graduating out of college, or sorry, high school. Most of them, they're going in without knowing what to expect. I say, have a long-term plan. Envision yourself, like, what do I want to do within the next 5 to 10 years? If you don't have that answer, I say don't enlist, honestly, to be honest with you. I wouldn't recommend it, because a lot of people end up going and then they hate their life because, like, what did I do? Like, I should have went to college, or I should have done this. I could have been making more money. Or maybe they joined for the wrong reason. Maybe they joined because they want the money or the benefits, and then they end up, becoming mentally affected, or physically even, because there were things that they were not expecting. And so do your research, talk to a recruiter, don't buy anything you see online, and have an active plan of, what do I want to do with my life? How do I see myself in the next 10 years? If I join the Marine Corps right now, if I join the Air Force, the Army, or any branch, how do I see myself 5, 10 years down the road? And how can I keep myself on that track so that I can have inevitable success by the time I get out?
Yeah, I totally agree. And of course, serving the country is such a great honor, but it also comes with such great responsibility. With great honor comes with great responsibility. So, just to wrap it up, if you could send one message to young conservatives across America right now, what would it be?
Mhm. If I could send one message to young conservatives out there, first and foremost, it would be get right with God, right? Strive to do your best in all that you do before God and before Christ, and try to perfect your relationship with them. Number two, I'd say go out and share the gospel with your friends. Do not be afraid to share the gospel with your friends. I go out all the time in the workplace, and I tell them about my faith, and they know about my faith, and they know that I'm unapologetic about it. I display it with the merch, not the merch, but the clothes that I wear, with the sticker decals that I have on my car and whatnot, or my bio and or on social media and things like that. Be unapologetic for Jesus Christ. Number three, be more vocal. Do not be afraid to go out there and voice your opinions. Do not be afraid out there to go and to talk with people, to have conversations, to try to make a difference. Number four, network, network, network. This is probably the most important thing. Aside from, growing your relationship with Jesus Christ and God, I'd say the second most important thing is networking. Because the more people you know, believe it or not, the more opportunities you have. I cannot tell you how many opportunities I got to go to major events, to meet influential people, to get career opportunities, simply because of one phone call, or simply because of one person I want to go and talk to. It could even be a random friend I meet at work or somebody, right? So always go and network. Always strive to go talk to more people, right? Like I said, if you want to be a business, right? You mentioned earlier entrepreneurship. If you want to have a successful business, and if you want to be able to get mentors that are going to give you life-changing advice, go surround yourself with people. Go to a golf club. A lot of rich people go to golf clubs. A lot of successful people, old people who have a lot of life experience, go to golf clubs. So go to a golf club. Go to an event or gathering somewhere, go to local political events as well, because a lot of investors, a lot of billionaires, millionaires go to these local political events. So try to make sure you surround yourself with people who will influence you positively. Networking will literally change the game. Networking opens limitless opportunities for you in your life. But that will be my advice for Gen Z. All of these things, right? So get close to God, spread the gospel, go talk to people, network.
All right, Winton, thank you so much. That was just an amazing interview, and I really thank you for joining us. And I really hope that you can be on the show very shortly, obviously sometime soon, because just an amazing conversation. And thank you guys for all tuning in. And I'm Gino Falco, and I'm going to continue being the voice for young conservatives across the country, even when the left tries to silence us. And I certainly know my friend Winton will do his part in America's comeback. So thank you, Winton, for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.